I'm Melissa Fisher. I am a property developer. I have been in the industry for more years than I care to admit, to be perfectly honest. And it's been very diverse roles throughout the industry, from the starting position to where we currently are now. And then definitely looking at impact on the industry and the lead-in of new generations as well, which is very exciting to see and a lot to address in that space. Now, I have with me Trevor Reynolds. So welcome, Trev.
Thank you.
Trevor is a builder, which was paramount considering we're talking construction today, but he's a builder in the residential space as well as in the commercial space, which is very handy because we are going to touch on both residential and the commercial aspect of construction today. Now, Trev's also a property developer, how things unfold. But today he is going to be our resident builder for the sake of what we're going to be talking about. And we are open to questions from either side of this, whether you are looking at being an investor, whether you're a professional in the industry, or you want to get into property development and construction seems like the way to go. We're open to questions at all levels. So I think what we'll do, I think we're going to get started.
Yep, sure.
Because we've got a fair bit to touch off on. Okay, so construction process. One of the things that I have found interesting to hear an amount of is how people see it as quite a complex process. Mm-hmm. It's very challenging. So a lot of people, specifically from an investment perspective, don't tend to jump into that. Now, I see it through students. I see it in the industry with consultants and that we talk to as well. But definitely when you're looking at that project that you use as a lead into getting into property investment, construction seems like it's almost out of bounds for most people. So we want to be able to explain to the end investor, so the person that's going to hold that asset or create that asset, what that actually looks like process-wise. Like simplify it down so it's not that overwhelming. Let's not go there. Let's start with something that seems more simple. So from a standing start, we're talking investment property here. I want to start with residential because for most people, and I say most, not all, but for most people, that will be their starting position. Yep. As your own home, all of us to some point will tend to overcapitalize it. You will spend more, you'll design differently, 100%. You will do things differently when it's your own home. Yep. Okay, so if we're looking at where do we start? Where do we start? Who would be the first person from a builder's perspective? Yep. Who would be the first person that you would recommend someone coming in to do a residential build?
So probably the first thing I'd say too is that it can be really stressful for people, but it doesn't have to be stressful. No, so, and for a lot of people, it is really stressful, and it's really just by not simply following a basic process. Yep. And really, as cliche as it is, it's about having the right team. So, it is. So the first thing is knowing what you want. So that's probably the first thing. So having a bit of an idea of what you want, and how you do that is look at display homes, drive up streets, look at roads, look at what other people do. So first thing is have some idea of what you want, because when you go and approach a builder or a team, it just makes it easier rather than starting from scratch. So you get all your ideas together. Some people use a scrapbook, cut out cuttings, look at magazines, put in a scrapbook. So simple stuff like that. So get a little collage of what you want. And then it's a matter of going through display homes, things like that, looking at what other developers are doing, other people are doing, get a feel for it. And then the absolute key to this, to reduce the stress levels and make it easy, is just picking the right team, which is starting off with a builder. So,
look, and I'm going to say I'm quite lucky because from a builder perspective, I have used you on projects.
Correct.
We have done projects together, but that for me was a process to get to that point. Yeah. Right. As I had when I first had you as a builder on a project, there was a process that I went through. So if we look at the end first then and say, if I want to sell this investment property, I want to sell it at a good price in the market, but I want to be able to make money along the way because this is going to be a career change for me. Yep. And I look at what has sold consistently, saying, well, this is a model now that's selling quite well in the market, whether it be the amount of bedrooms, the bathrooms, but more so the finishing touches, those little things that make the big difference. So I come to you and I say, Trevor, I've got a block of land. Now, I bought it cheap. It's in a little estate and I bought it cheap. What is the first thing you're going to ask me, knowing that I bought this cheap in a brand new estate?
Yeah. So the very first question I would ask is it flat?
Because there's a reason why I got it cheap, isn't there?
That's right. So is it flat? And when we say flat, within 300 mil. So and this is a mistake. A lot of people look at a block and it looks flat.
Yeah.
And most people assume it's a couple hundred mil to the naked eye. It can be a metre and a half for slope, and then that's site costs and all that sort of stuff. So, things like easements and things like that. So we actually know what building envelope we've got, so what we can fit on there. All the services, things like that. So that's my first questions would be along those lines, because it directly that relates back to costs.
So going back to our process and saying to that person, before you actually unconditional on that block of land, it would be a really good idea to have a team, whether it be your lawyer, whether it be a surveyor, whether it be a planner, whether it be a builder, to look at it and say, great price. These are the challenges that you would be entering into, and none of them are not workable, but these are the challenges, and we say engineer them out, but we can address them. And this is going to be the ballpark cost. So if you look at that in comparison to maybe a little bit more expensive block of land, so
you can have that false economy kick in. So
absolutely.
So in an ideal world, in some cases, some people already have land, but in an ideal world, if you're starting off, you haven't purchased your land, you'd actually start to get a feel for what you want to build, what the market wants, get an idea of what you want to build. You potentially maybe have a builder in mind or someone you're talking with, part of that relationship building where you're not actually signing contracts and things like that. But a decent builder should be happy to work with you and give us some free time. And that's basically, then you can, if you have a block of land that you're interested in, get the builder to go out and have a look, and they'll look at things like easements, slopes. And from that, they can give you an estimate straight away. And again, if they can't, you'd probably be a little bit concerned. So they should be able to give you some sort of an estimate. So again, your borrowing capacity, your return on investment, what you're going to get. There's no point not figuring that out before you start.
No, I totally agree, because sometimes when we're buying something that is cheap or discounted, there's a reason for it. I mean, sometimes it's just a developer getting rid of the last bits of their stock as well, but generally that comes with some complexity. No, that's dead
especially
right.
Not at the current market.
No, totally agree. Agree. So the one thing I do want to touch on with everyone there is when Trevor said a builder will generally give you some free time to do that initial assessment. Absolutely, but be respectful of that time as well. We want to make sure that we've done our assessment on the builder we want to use and that we're really confident we're going to move forward with them. And then they will give you that bit of free time, because at the end of the day, you've started a journey.
Correct.
Right? You're already into that. And there's going to be wins along the way for everyone. If you keep randomly taking stuff to a person and never commit to it, there'll come a point in time where they're just going to go, hey, sunshine, that's enough.
And you need to know what you want at the start of the day. And the other one is in regards to that too, you just need to be a little bit careful, particularly with volume builders, signing up subject to stock costs and things like that. So that's, you've really got to just have the basics in the background.
Absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with speaking to other people and saying, hey, what were your costs on this? Did you have any challenges? If the person that owns the block next door, were there any challenges when 100%. You bought this, and what was your construction process
just do a little bit of homework in the background.
So it sounds like there's a lot to do in the beginning, but that's the gold, isn't it? That's where if you get that bit right, the rest of it, then we've engaged our builder. We have picked out what it is we've wanted. You can get all excited if you like about your color schemes and your tap fittings without over capitalizing. Let's talk builder's range.
Okay, so very important too, and we spoke about building for yourself or building for investment. Totally different mindset you've got to have there. So you've got to take the emotion out of it. You've got to forget about what you want to live in. You've got to think about what 80% of the market's going to live in. So
absolutely,
you might want bright purple walls, things like that. 80% of the population doesn't want bright purple walls.
No, they don't.
So it's about that. So take the emotion out of it and look at your return on investment. So you've got to look at bang for buck. But in saying that, you've also got to make sure you don't underdo it. So it's really important. There is a builder's range there, but sometimes through the whole process, you've got to look at builder's range, but you might overstep a few items above the builder's range just to get that.
So maybe some pendant lighting that you may say it actually adds value to a kitchen and preference to maybe it might be those bench tops.
If it's a smaller dwelling, maybe half a foot higher ceilings just makes it feel bigger. It might be $2,000 or $3,000 of expense. Maybe the bench tops, maybe just a better underlay under the standard carpet, which will make the carpet feel
better.
So much better. So little things like that that are worth spending those little bits, because you will get a significant return and also more sellable. So
absolutely. So the ceiling height is a big one.
It is a big one.
And it's really interesting you bring that up, because I know so often you can walk into a place and go, wow, it feels good, knowing that it's quite small, and not actually take any notice of what it is that makes it feel good. It just does. It's not generally that you look up and go, oh yeah, that's actually okay. It just adds such a good feeling to an end product.
Three things that I look at for space in a house. One is ceiling height. One is plenty of natural light. And minimal hallways. Hallways are a waste of space. So particularly in smaller homes, you can afford hallways in larger homes, but doing that, they're the three things you look at.
So back to our investment opportunity here. I've come to you with my block of land. We've decided that I got it cheap, and there was a bit of cost associated with that now to make this workable for our build, but that's okay. I've got a great builder engaged, and we've run through all the costs. We've gone over the layout of the home, and you've made some recommendations. So as an investment opportunity for me, you've come in and said, yes, we need to give consideration to your ceiling height here. We've rejigged the design because we've utilised some wasted space. We've made some of the rooms a bit bigger. We've got rid of those hallways. What's next for me when we look at locking in that final plan? What is next piece of advice to an investor with that information?
Okay, so for me, it's really important again and even for me as a builder, so this is great for the builder. I think not all builders agree with this, but great for the end user, is fixed contracts. So fixed price contract. So in so many places, you'll see it may be termed as a fixed price contract, but then it's got provisional items. It's got all these additional or plus size costs. So you really don't actually know what you're paying
It's
for.
where the complexity of construction comes in at those points there, because it becomes confusing for someone that doesn't understand.
And that's where the stress begins.
Of course it is, because most people won't say, this is just a standard building contract. I don't need to take it to my lawyer to understand all of this. It seems very simple on the surface. And for anyone in the industry, it is, but you're just used to it. And for the consultants that look at it and work with it, they're used to it. They understand it. But that's not who's doing this. This is someone stepping into the market that's going to do a residential build that don't understand that. And all of a sudden, what they thought it was going to cost has blown out considerably. And there's no turning back at that point.
And then you're committed. So the two names you got to recall is prime costs and provisional sums. They're the two you don't want in your contract. If you're building a house for yourself and it was a bigger build and you wanted flexibility, I could understand having those in your contract. If you are building a home purely for investment and you want to know your return, you know the exact costs, those two items should never be in a contract.
So we just want a fixed price
100%.
contract.
And a builder should be able to do that. If they can't, walk away.
Challenge it. I totally agree. Now, two things that I give consideration to when you talk about that is knowing what your investment return is. So it's locked and loaded. We absolutely know what that cost is. And it now stops you from changing anything. At that point, you are locked and loaded with your decisions too. We've been through everything. We've ticked all the boxes. Design is great. We've picked out our tiles and all of these lovely things. And that's it. So from here on, there's no changes.
Correct. And that's a big thing I'm disciplined on. So I won't build for someone. If someone isn't prepared to complete their colour selections and all their selections before we start building, I won't start.
That's fair.
And the reason for that, again, this is where the stress begins again too. So for me as a builder, I know exactly what I'm doing, how long I'm going to take, and I can be efficient. For the owner, they know their costs and they've done their decision making and they can just let it get built. That's the easy part now. Building's easy. It's getting to that point.
Of course it is.
So 100% that. And the other one that's really important is very well detailed drawings. And the reason for that again is that what you see is what's going to get built. So if it's not clear on the drawings and how the builder interprets, how the end user interprets are two different things. And that's where the stress begins again.
Can we elaborate on that one? Because it's a very, very important point. How many people on your team are going to see those plans and have to interpret them?
So great example. So every trade, and I'll give you some great examples. So in a laundry, you might have where the washing machine's going. You might have tap fittings on the wall that might be hidden in the cupboard. PowerPoint locations. If those taps aren't shown on a plan properly, the plumber may go, well, I'll just put the taps there. you have an expectation for some reason, because you've seen another house that they're in the cupboard, and you turn up and there's taps on the wall, but the drawings don't specify that. So then it becomes, well, I assumed.
Mm-hmm.
If it's drawn on the plans, which it should be, or the PowerPoint's not drawn correctly.
Mm-hmm.
A PowerPoint ends up in the middle of the bench where you want it in the corner of the bench. That's where the stress again begins. So if the drawings are really accurate, and then for the trades, it's easy. There's no mistakes. So they just get in, they know what they're doing.
Yep.
And a good builder will value that because they know for themselves less issues, more efficient.
Yep. And nothing.
So it works for both ends.
Yeah.
Really important. And I can't understate that.
So there's one of those things that we say it's right at the very beginning. You do the hard yards, then you put the effort in.
Building the house
tick
is
all
easy.
of those. Yeah. Construction simple. Okay.
It is the
But
easy part.
So who would you recommend someone spend the time with to get that perfect?
So again, and it depends again which way you go with builders. So the volume builders are very good at the detail because they do it all the time.
Yep.
And a lot of the time they're replicating a product. So the volume builders have got that down pat. They've got their specification. And that's the other thing too, not just drawing, specifications need to be really detailed.
Yep.
Because you're signing off on that. It can't be assumed. So volume builders have got that down pat. When you go to a custom builder, which is less likely you'd use a custom builder for an investment property, but we've
got a block of land that was bought cheap, so it's challenging. So we have to do
But that is where you've got to form that relationship, and particularly the custom builder, and that's where you would have a better relationship than, because with the volume builder, you'll never see the builder, you'll never meet the builder, you'll meet the sales builder.
You're just meeting the sales.
With the custom builder, you've got to have that relationship.
Of course you do.
And you've got to spend the time.
Okay, so we've built a good relationship with our builder, and he's stepped us through this because he's going to be the one that's making those recommendations and suggestions of detail. And have you considered, do you think this is my recommendation? And we get through to that end. We have a nice fixed price contract that we're signing off on. From our end user, so the person that's paying our builder to undertake this process, what else do they have to do?
Well, even with the contract, one thing that's critical too is the time of the build. So how long the build takes, because at the end of the day, the longer the build takes, the build will cost you more money. So in holding costs and things like that. So that's really important, is build times. So that's the other part of it. What's
a standard? And I know this is an open-ended question, okay, because we look at what's happening in the market. Materials are going to get sourced. Like there's an amount to give consideration to. However, this is not for the end user to get caught up in the process of, but there's an understanding there that when a builder says this is the time frame, this is not going to be the time you're on site. There's consideration to other aspects there. But how important is it to have that discussion up front about expectations? Because remember, this is an investor. This is not someone shifting into their home. So we'll look at the process after construction. But how important is it to understand that time frame and how long it actually takes, for what reason, and the stages throughout it to lower the stress levels that go with why isn't this finished yet? And what would be a standard contract time frame on a residential house?
So again, volume builder, custom builder is different. So the volume builders, again, very efficient, and for them, the quicker they build, the more money they make. So an average build for a volume builder would be, say, 20 weeks. At the moment, with the current struggles to get materials and things, that may change a little bit. So it's subject to availability, but an actual custom builder would look at probably more like 10 months. So 8 to 10 months, depending on the complexity and things like that. So that might vary. So there is a difference there. So without a doubt.
But again, from an investment perspective, you need to know that up front, because you need to know when you can start looking at marketing for whether it be tenancy or sale of that product.
And even what you're saying about marketing too. So, even the timing of the completion. So, is the timing going to have that completion in the middle of winter? Spring, summer. So when's your best time to market? Like if you're selling
springtime,
so again, you'd look at the start and finish times and make sure that it actually, and the other thing is you don't want to be landscaping in the backyard. Well, depending on what climate you're in, but where we come from in the middle of winter, you've got to wear a snowsuit to landscape your yard. So,
but you've done that before, haven't we?
So it's important to consider those sort of things.
Of course it is.
About when you hit the trigger for that to start.
So when we look at complexity of construction, we will always say irrelevant. The construction itself isn't hard. It's the detail at the beginning and the mapping out your time frame, forgetting about your own home from an investment perspective, understanding those time frames and the details is where, if you're going to focus your time, that's where you'd focus it the most. 100%. And that's where you'd ask the most amount of questions. So everyone's on the same page with what they're actually doing. So my block of land that I bought that was cheap and nasty that we've decided, so you've sorted those challenges out for me. You've created a great product with me. We're well and truly into the build. We've got a nice fixed price contract in place. So I know what my end result is going to be. And for this one in particular, I'm going to sell it. I've decided that it's a great market to sell. There's a lot of demand to be in the area, and I'm going to sell it. And I say to you, Trev, here's a challenge for me. I don't want to be selling in the middle of winter, right? I want to be finishing my landscaping leading into springtime. It's a great time to sell. So I can actually give you some more time. What does that mean contractually for me to say, before we've signed that, Trev, I don't actually need to have this delivered? Does that help you, or does that make it harder?
Look, sometimes it can, because don't forget the builder's not just building a house for you. The builder has other builds going on.
Of course.
So, and again, volume builder as opposed to custom builder, very different how they look at it. The volume builder can deal with, they can ramp up and ramp down quite quickly. The custom builder might only build 8 homes a year. So that might be very convenient for the builder to go, okay, I'm happy with that. And also for a builder, it's better to build in the dry months and the wetter months. It actually has a cost. There's mess on site, additional rock. So there is advantages and disadvantages for that. So 100%. So again, that's something that it is conversation. The other thing to consider too, when we spoke about before, finishing the house landscaping, don't always assume that, you've got a great relationship with the builder, but until that final payment's made, the builder owns that site. So he can technically say, no, you can't come on site. I mean, I'm a bit wary. I pick and choose my clients that allow that to. I generally let all my clients wander in all the time so they can keep an eye on things and keeps them happy. However, when it comes to physical things on site, the builder absolutely has the right to say no. So, of course, again, don't think that, towards the end I can get into some landscaping, things like that. It may technically be, well, it's completely handover finished before you can actually do that. So
that comes down to building those good relationships. It is. Really, right from the beginning, working in well, working as a team and getting a great end result. Otherwise, you're going to get some resistance when 100%. It comes to, and you've got to understand it's a construction site.
It is.
Okay, so there are challenges that go with that, and there's also liability that goes with it too.
Liability, and again, volume builder, custom builders will have a different attitude towards that.
Absolutely, they will. So residentially on our team from start to finish, from me being the landowner, how many people did I have to engage? So I would have had my lawyer to start off with because we're going to get contracts checked out because I didn't understand them that well. We're going to have my builder. Potentially, I would have spoken to a planner or someone in regards to the best use of my block of land or where I was buying. So maybe, but not necessarily on a single home like that. Who else would I have had on my team to have undertaken one home? So
you've got those initials, which is picking your builder. So you start with your planner, you talk to solicitors, and you deal with your builder.
And definitely your accountant and your bank, broker, bank,
all that sort of stuff, 100%. So once you've signed that contract, the interactions then would be your colour selection process. So you'd actually go off to very, cabinet makers, you'd go to plumbing shops, tiling shops, or again, some of the volume builders have all that in-house. So that's really the interaction. Once it's being built, because you've got your fixed price contract, you've got all your specifications clearly set out, you've got really great plans, everything's there. There's no more interaction. You'll have a final walkthrough, or you might have a few walkthroughs depending on the builder, but towards the end you do a pre-walkthrough. And then depending if you're going to engage landscapers and things like that, fencing contractors, concreters, things like that, then you'd have some of that at the end. But again, if you've got an agreement with the builder to do that or not. So
so it's not huge at this point in time. So and again, I'm looking at this from a very simplistic perspective because construction itself from the end user doing it is not that hard. There's not that much they have to do. Now you get to a point where there's things you choose to do, which becomes a very different ballgame, but there's not that much you have to do. And remember, because we were selling, we're going to have a real estate agent engaged. We're going to have some marketing material created, and we'll go into the selling process. But at the end of the day, it's quite simple, especially for one home. Now, you could do multiples of those throughout a year, and that process is really not going to change that much for you at all.
And look, I've built spec homes, and I've built a number of them at a time. And what I've done is I've just changed some colours on the outside, but I might find an internal colour scheme that I really like, and I just stick with it, or I change it up here or there. And it's so simple. Once you're on something good, just stick with it. It's easy.
So the simplicity comes with the absolute given. It's a known. That the costs are known. The end result is known. Right? We're now into no guesswork required. Okay. So very simple process, very simple to understand, and do what you do well, and let your team, specifically your builder, do what they do well. Okay. Let's start over to commercial.
Totally different ballgame.
Okay, there you go, right? So again, here comes some of the complexity, and I want to bring this up right now. When people talk about construction, I think the first piece of missing information is, are you talking residential, which on that level is quite simple, or are you talking commercial, which is a very, very different beast?
Very different.
And you're having a very different conversation at this level. You've got totally different people on your team. And all of a sudden, that person that's hearing the conversation is going, oh, Lord, how am I ever going to get through a simple construction? Because they haven't quantified yet whether it's that simple residential or the commercial conversation that's being had. So I hands down love commercial. There's an amount of it happening. I think I've never seen the market as good in the commercial realm as what it currently is at the moment. So let's talk all things commercial. And when I say commercial, let's throw commercial, industrial all into one bucket, because it's just construction at the moment. And although it's a very, very different beast, I also want to look at
the processes,
the simplicity of it, how we can keep it simple, who we can use to keep it simple, and the flexibility that remains in there more so than from a residential perspective. So again, I come to you, Trevor, with a block of land. This time I learned, okay, we didn't buy the cheapest block of land. We've got a sizable block of land, and I come to you with a concept, right? Because that's at that point in time, it's what it is. And I say, Trev, I'm looking for a really good commercial builder. I've got this great concept. Here's my block of land. I don't know where to start.
Okay.
All right. So
my first question would be, which I probably know the answer if you don't know where to start, is, do you have a planning permit?
Oh, do I need one of those? Do I need one of those now? Why do I need that at this point?
Because that's the rules.
No, go beyond that. So for you as a builder, what does that planning permit mean? Okay,
so the very, very brief difference between residential, commercial, industrial. Residential, the land's owned. Residential, you've got res code. It's a fairly simple thing. You build a box, as long as you meet setbacks, done.
Builder takes care of that in design phase for you. We're sweet.
Industrial, commercial, totally different beast. So you might have a zoned area, but it doesn't mean you can just go and build something to a code. You actually have to go to the local authority, which which is your local council, and you've got to go through a planning process. And before you even submit a planning permit, you've got to look at a whole bunch of things.
Okay, so
this is where you need to get your team together.
I've got a great block of land here. I've got a concept that I think is going to work, right? And I've dealt with you residentially before, but this is a whole new kettle of fish. Okay, so you've mentioned to me that I probably should have spoken to council at this stage to see if that initial concept is even allowed to happen on that block of land, because it's not just as simple as saying, I want to build a box, there's a block of land, and that's what we're going to build it. Let's talk use to start off with, because that's going to have as big an impact on the viability, not just that the whether or not we're allowed to undertake that or create that as an end result. So we speak to our local authority, our council, and we say we're going to build some factories. Right, this is stock standard. We want to build some factories. In this current climate, we're looking at businesses changing. So they're smaller factories than what they used to be. They want their own office areas in them so they can operate their business. Their business is going to expand. So we need to look at what that looks like. What are the things that council are first going to give consideration to from a use perspective before they dig into the nitty-gritty of how this is going to work?
So from my understanding, there are certain businesses that can fit into industrial zone without a use permit. However, once you start talking about things like you said, office space, things like that, they'll start to consider car parking, quantities of parking based on access, on all that sort of stuff, proximity to residential, because depending on the use that you want, noise, smell, things like that. So there's a whole range of things that need to be considered.
So before I go to council then, because you've just, as I've come to you with this block of land, knowing absolutely nothing about what I can do with it, and you've gone, do you have a permit? And I've gone, oh, hell no, not yet. Who would I want to bring on my team that's going to undertake that? Because, to make it really clear at this point, this is what we do. So we will see the simplicity in this. But if you threw that at me as someone that had never done it before, all of a sudden we can start to see where the stress levels start to rise. And that instant thought that this is going to be hard work and are we ever going to get to the end of a process right from the very beginning? So who would I bring onto my team to eliminate the complexity there and give some really good sounding solid information on what can be achieved?
So straight to the point, a town planner. So
absolutely.
Obviously as a builder, so for me personally, if you came to me, I could give you some approximate ideas what you could and couldn't do, but I wouldn't have a lot of detail on that. I'm not a planner, but I know enough to be dangerous. So I'd give some basic advice. From that point, I'd recommend my town planner because I know my town planner knows this council, specifically this council, has done projects similar to this. And my town planner looks at the detail and basically make sure they can maximise what you can do within that space. They just don't, they're not lazy, I guess, and just follow the basic points. They look at the planning scheme in detail and know what, there's always, I wouldn't call it grey, but there's not necessarily black and white. So it's interpretation. Of course, absolutely. So if you've got a planner that can interpret things and spend the time, you could have another planner that might cost a little bit less. But you get a very different result with another planner. So planners absolutely key. I'm
going to touch on that. When we start looking at our team, we want to make sure we have the right people for the right project. So the planner that we engaged to do our multiples of residential houses that gave us good advice about what we could build on that block and our setbacks and some challenges within that council, they may not be an expert in the commercial industrial realm and understand the planning scheme to the level that's required. And there's no right and wrong with that. Everyone has their own skill sets in that field that they love to play in. Some people will gravitate to the residential and some won't. Some will have a mix, but predominantly you'll find the ones that play in the other higher subdivisions, the commercial, the industrial space, have a totally different skill set and will advise quite differently on what you can do and how you can overcome some of those challenges and how you can work with council to achieve good end results. Because from a business perspective, that is very different than a residential perspective. Even from a council, how council see things. So first we have a planner. Who else do we want on our team? This has got a little bit of a water issue, this block. I mean, I did say it was flat, but it's right by a creek.
That's why it's flat. Holds a bit of water in the back corner. So again, there'll be other consultants that'll have to come on board. So depending on, again, and your town, this is where the town planner is really critical to this, because the town planner will look at things like overlays. So even though it's, say, industrial commercial, doesning mean it's the same as industrial commercial down the road. So there'll be various overlays. There might be cultural heritage, there might be environmental overlays, things of that nature. So for example, if there's an environmental overlay, that might mean that we need to go and see someone from biodiversity. If we've got some trees there, we might have to engage an arborist. If we've got water problems, we might have to get a hydrologist. There's going to be some engineering components. So again, that planner would identify those various consultants that are required. And then basically a good planner again should potentially have their own people that they've used in the past. or they may not. So that becomes the next challenge.
Sometimes that challenge is just that those other consultants are crazy busy.
Correct.
And that planner can go, my hydrologist is not available at this point in time. We need to find someone to do some modelling on that land to see what we can do with the water issues. Same with all of the team. Okay, so we just need to be mindful that as much as they will assist us in pulling that together,
that's right,
sometimes there are challenges generally based on time constraints because they're all very busy.
Right.
So our town planner, again, if we're looking at that end product that we're creating and the process that we're going through, that town planner is going to help me pull together the correct team to start off with. They will start telling me who I need, and if they can assist in engaging, they will. If they can't, well, then they'll give some recommendation on where to go. This is great. Okay, so I have a team around me now. What have I had to do at this point? Aside from come and speak to you and speak to my planner, there's not really much I've had to actually physically do. Again, aside from have some good, honest conversation about how much I know and how much I don't know, what support that I need from my team, and conceptually what I want to create.
And again, that's another good example. So if you had a really good town planner, a really well-connected town planner, they could engage all those consultants with advice to you, or you could choose to go and find each of those individual consultants. So that's where you have the control of whether you want to make it complex or simple.
And again, I'm going to say that there's responsibility that goes with that. If your town planner, with the best of intentions, pulls that team together, and there's someone in there that just is not aligned with your end result, they've worked with this planner before and they're great, but not on this project. It's your responsibility. We've had those conversations. You will be given a price, a quoted price for the scope of works. So you need to accept that and have the conversation with those people and be responsible for your team. You can't be them blaming a planner because they pulled together a team. That does not gel at all. So you've still got to take on a level of responsibility there to say, I've engaged my consultants, I've worked with my planner, we're good to go, and maintain good relationships moving forward, because there's nothing more important, I think, when challenges arise, to know that you're all working as a team and you've got good relationships. Engineer. So how important is the role of an engineer right up front from the very, very initial stages?
Really important. So engineering is probably, out of all of them, I would say, is the most critical to a project. So for me, from the experience that I've learned. So engineering is an interesting industry. So engineering, there's a whole lot of factors. Most engineers, so engineering has a baseline that they engineer to, then they have a big buffer zone within that engineering to cover for this or that. So getting an engineer that is prepared to look at that buffer zone, I guess, in that it's going to comp up, it's going to stand up, it's going to do everything that it needs to do, it's going to comply, but it's got to be affordable to build. So you can have engineers that come up with some fantastic designs, but they're just not cost effective. They're not cost effective. So it's really important that the engineer has the ability to consider building costs at the outset, because that's where you can have a massive blowout.
Oh, of course. So again, it's communication too, isn't it? If we are speaking to our team with the overall concept in place of this is what we want to achieve. Now, okay, so let me frame this a little bit better. I've come to you with my concept. We've looked at the saleability. We've looked at the saleability and demand in the market for this product and said there is a high demand for it. We want to service our area with this product. I've found the block of land. So we know our sell point. Okay, we also know that we love doing what we do, but we don't do it for nothing. Right? And time is worth something. There's value in what you actually do and create. So we have these conversations that are very real about the cost base associated from each level of this. So our engineer then understands that this is not an open-ended, let's create the wheel or let's recreate the wheel, but they are open enough to be able to apply their thought process and skill set to come up with better and different ways of engineering things to get good end results.
And again, with an engineer, the engineer has to comp it up and check everything. However, an engineer should be able to give you a basic concept based on experience. They'd say, well, we're going to use these type of footings, we're going to use these type of beams, structurally this is how it's going to go together. So from the outset, based on basic information, they can look at that so you get an understanding of, at that point, depending on other things you've got to consider, whether you continue down the process where you go, right, let's go get some estimates at this stage, or do we start to actually hit the trigger and spend some big dollars on full design? So
let's talk about that, because there's a level of complexity that can come into engaging someone for something you don't understand.
Yep.
So if you have gone and spoken to an engineer and he has said, yes, for what you want, this is the scope that I can deliver, and this is going to be the price point. Yep. Plenty of questions need to be asked, because you're not an engineer, and we're not taking on something that we don't know, but we need to understand the relevance of that process, definitely the importance of it, but the impact it's going to have on our end product. Can we go and see other projects that engineer's been involved in?
Sure. Yep.
That would never be a problem to ask a team, anyone that you're looking at, to say, hey, thank you for that. What other projects have you done that are the same sort of scope as this? I'd love to get a feel for the end result of it.
Yep. And I do a similar thing to that now. Even though I've built plenty, I'll talk to my engineer. We'll talk about conceptually the structure, and he'll say, oh, we did that on that project or that project. I go, okay, so I'd go and look at that, or make myself refamiliarise myself with that and go, okay, I understand now conceptually how this is going to go together.
So would a good question to an engineer be around the cost saving scenarios? If we're looking at this from a standing start, from the initial engineering, what can we put in place that is cost saving right from the very beginning, whether we're looking at drainage, whether we're looking at site cuts, whether we're looking at irrelevant, right? From a building perspective, does that actually trigger a different thought process with them versus the open-ended, here you go?
Absolutely. And I've seen it numerous times before too, in that, and the example is, to a new player, you go and get some quotes from an engineer. The documentation is a bit gobbledygook when you read it, but you look at a figure of 15,000 from this engineer and 8,000 from that engineer. The natural feeling is, and he can do it straight away, the $8,000 engineer. The $15,000 engineer said, I can't do it for 8 weeks. The natural thought process, oh, well, I really need to look at this. To me, that would set off alarm bells.
Of course, yes.
And what may happen if you went down this path, there's a difference of $7,000. At the end of the build, we could be talking $50,000, $60,000, $80,000 in build costs and time. So that's the example.
False economy again is seeing,
and that's a big one. So the engineer is probably the most important in the industrial structure, because it's and again, respectfully to engineers too, because we have an amazing team and we have some incredible work that's done, and definitely cost savings and flexible ways of achieving things. So I say spoiled to that degree. We have incredible people we're working with no due respect to any engineer at all. It's never intentional. No.
Right. It comes down to the questions that we ask them up front, and then really being able to refine what that end result needs to look like right from the beginning. There's no point in letting them have this open-ended thought process, over-engineering it, and then trying to pull it back down again.
And it's really the attitude of the engineer. The engineer that you want is the one that wants to be challenged, because he's going to challenge himself on how he can improve things, do things better, more efficiently. The old school engineer, he's drawn it up this way forever. It's simple, it's easy, it's safe. He's got a massive buffer. So that's what he's going to provide. So
their license is on the line, but also his reputation. And I know the ones that are great to work with are the ones that will challenge processes and look for new ways and effective and affordable ways to achieve.
And they'll want to prove to you that they can actually achieve a better, more cost-effective product.
Absolutely. They're an integral part of the team. I forgot to tell you, on this block of land, we're going to subdivide as well.
Awesome.
I know. Okay. So we'd probably want to be having a discussion with our surveyor right up front as well, because although we may not need him for quite some time, having that discussion right in the onset allows the team to work time frame collectively. So we're not all of a sudden saying, now by no means does this mean we cannot get to the end of a build and say, okay, well now based on the market, I want to subdivide this and do something different. We have that flexibility. But if we have the conceptual idea that we may want to do that, at least that upfront conversation with all of the potential team members, personally from experience, I think is imperative.
Absolutely.
Because they get good input from the beginning and get to say, okay, well, if you are even considering a subdivision, how about you give consideration to these factors now? So when we move forward, we have not wasted time. We're not going to be double doing things.
Agreed.
Which will also come down to our groundwork
Yep.
that we're doing. Okay, so let's give some consideration to the difference in flexibility from a industrial commercial construction versus a resodental.
So for me as a builder, I actually prefer to build industrial than residential, because to me, and without sounding simplifying, to me, industrial is just a box. So,
it is.
Generally, clients that I deal with industrial aren't really too fussed about colours and bits and pieces. They're generally, you pick us the colours, or what's your standard colours, because they're not going to live there. They're not emotionally attached to it.
Yes.
With a house, you've got to spend so much time with the client. And some clients are more needy than others, where they just want to be, they want to feel good about them. And it's a big investment for them.
Yep.
Whereas industrial, they're business people you're dealing with.
Yeah, totally different.
It's all about just dollars and cents and contracts with rather than the feel good. So for me, I love industrial because they're just boxes with boxes inside.
I have seen some of the most amazing buildings, and they all started off as a box.
Yep.
Right. It's just boxes.
It is.
Right? Done well with great facades and great colour schemes and all the rest of it.
They are simply a box.
But they're simply a box.
Yep.
So then that gives us a huge amount of flexibility as we move forward, saying, okay, this is what we've created externally. We've got great facade. We've ticked our planning permit conditions. We've done our landscaping, and we're still working on the internal, because that was not as imperative from a standing start. We weren't quite sure who was going to go in this and to what level. So we have some flexibility in there. We also have some flexibility from that overall, the finishes and what we would do or wouldn't do up front. Let's talk about floor to start off with. Okay, because, and I bring this one up because it's a recent one too with a client, where we've had to go back and say, how about you not do that yet? So those conversations from a builder to a client, making recommendations that there's no point in spending that money.
That's right.
You don't know that that's what your tenant's going to want.
Correct. Yeah.
So to what point will you allow internal flexibility? So let's quantify this. External is once you have your planning permit in place, your building permit in place, locked and loaded. There's very little scope at that point without going back for amendments that you're going to get. And that's not a builder thing. That's a process that... And
look, it's easier to leave things out than to put things in.
Of course it is.
So again, depending on... but again... this is again where it's really important to talk with your builder, because a really good builder won't be just trying to pack as much in there to, to ultimately make more money out of you. But a really good builder will give you some really good advice, because
end results.
It's end results, and that builder would hope that you as a client is going to recommend them to someone else for that reason. And because it's about a relationship. So.
And it's not about an overspend again.
Correct.
So that good builder is going to come back and say, don't put that on the floor at the moment, because you may be putting carpet over that for a client. You don't need to actually overspend there.
And we did have one recently, as you said, which was a person was building a new building. They were going to take the upstairs area. Downstairs was left open. They were going to sublease that. They had a small toilet in the corner. They weren't sure what fit out would be done in there, but they asked for the floor to be all epoxied and finished off. And the recommendation was made, well, potentially that'll be covered with carpet, with walls, with other spaces. So why would you do that?
Why would you spend the money now?
So similarly, okay, it might present nicely, but potentially you've wasted $8,000 on something that didn't need to be done.
And this is when you're looking at return on investment, because that's what we're looking at from an industrial or commercial perspective, whether it be for an owner-occupier, they're still looking at a return on investment.
And again, residentially, you look at that differently. It's got to look pretty and nice and neat and all the rest of the facade, whereas this is more... people that are going to go into that space are business people. They can see it for what it is. They can visualize what they're going to put in there. So it's important.
And it's we've now allowed the flexibility to create good functional space for someone else as they come in as a tenant, without that owner initially having to overcapitalize on downstairs. So he was very grateful for that too. That was well received, that information. So at that point in time, we get to the end of our project externally. We have fitted out upstairs beautifully. Everyone's happy. They've shifted in, but our downstairs, as you've just mentioned on this one, is still vacant. Where do you stop and start? So for you as a builder, and your client now has shifted into their upstairs of their building, they're very happy. The sign off has been completed for compliance.
So that was going to be one of my comments. Is it as I must complete it to a compliance stage?
Before they can shift in. So where do you finish there, knowing that there's still downstairs space that needs to be, something eventually will need to be done from a builder's perspective? Where is your cutoff point? How do you leave that?
So effectively, again, this comes back to the original contract, what we've allowed for, what we've quoted. Now, in most cases, you have things such as a variation. So variations are really important through the build. As a builder, I try not to do variations, but you can't always get away with it. And there's things that pop up, things change, and it makes sense from both ends to allow that variation.
It's discussion, though.
It is discussion.
And documented.
But the variation is critical, that it's a document that varies the contract. So it's not just a variation, it actually varies the contract. So really important. So through that process, we might decide, no, we're going to take a few things out because we've changed our mind what we're going to do. So I would potentially, depending on the customer, we'd do a variation and we'd reduce some of that cost, but we're not putting in. Or I might say, okay, that's in the contract. I'm happy to come back. I've allowed that much for that. I'll come back and put that in later if that agreement can be made. So, but again, it needs to be documented and agreed to. So
we could finalise that initial contract because we've completed the whole scope for them. And then simply be re-engaged to come back and do the internal fit out for the downstairs area.
So as a builder, the best way I would handle is basically do a variation. If I've put less in, I would give them a credit. And I would say, well, that will be separate because, again, things change. And that would be the simplest, cleanest way.
Easy. So again, from my perspective now as the investor, the person that was creating this product, I haven't actually done a lot aside from engage a team of people, have I?
No.
But realistically, if we want to look at the simplicity of this, there's the importance, the absolute importance, and we'll say this from experience sake, is having the right people on your team. Absolute, hands down. If you're going to put any effort in whatsoever, it is to ensure that you have great communication, you've well selected your team, they work well together, and we're very transparent in the whole in our expectations of an end result and what we do and don't know. Because we're not going to get given support on something if they think we already know it. So it's being honest enough with your whole team to say, well, I actually don't understand that process. What needs to be done, or do I need to do anything? A lot of it from their perspective will just be keeping you informed.
100%. So ask questions. So for me, I'm always learning, and as a builder, and I've been in circumstances I've worked with others where they're arrogant or whether they're too proud, they don't want to ask the question. Ask the questions, get the answers, just learn all the time. And, it's the relationship. So you should be able to have a relationship with these people you're using where you should feel comfortable to ask questions. It's not a stupid question. That's how it should work. And if you're going to continue to be an investor or developer, this is part of the learning curve.
Of course it is. Of course it is. I think there's a lot said for that too, because as we look at what is happening in the industry and others coming into the industry, there's scope for creativity and different product being created, and you don't become a part of that unless you are curious and ask questions. You will just stick to same old, and that's got a very short lifespan, really. So 100%. I think the curiosity and the question asking is, again, an imperative part of a process, irrelevant to what you do. So one of the things that I do want to touch on quite quickly, though, is the what to do and what not to do. When we look at a team as working as a team, definitely if you're taking it on from that passive scenario where you've engaged your team, they're undertaking all the hands-on work, all the grunt work. Realistically, you're monitoring timelines, checking in, getting information, you're giving what is required of you by way of information, documents, facts, having things checked as required, signing off on things as required. Let's just very quickly, forgetting about what you know and how experienced you are. When you have someone coming in, we're still in the commercial realm here, partway through a project, and they are signing off on work that's been done. So they're going, Trevor, you've done, here's a bill for the work that's been undertaken so far. is it advantageous for them, knowing very little about the process, to actually have that quantified, to be able to go, work been done, bill to be paid?
Absolutely.
Right. So I know from a banking perspective, they will have an expectation, depending on the size of the project, of quantity surveyors being involved that would come out and go through the work that's been done, put a value on it, and send that back to the bank for a drawdown to ensure that the loan to value ratios are maintained and all of those
That's a really
good
good question. So, so again, we say residential, commercial, industrial. Residential is very simple. You have a fixed contract. You've got 5 or 6 set payments, which is, your deposit, your base, your frame, your lock up. So you can visually look and go, okay, we're at those stages. Very simple. And the banks control that to a degree. With your industrial, commercial, it's normally a monthly payment and it's percentage based. So there's not set, it's just over the period of the build. So it's really important to understand if the builder is claiming, 20%, what is that of the build? What does that 20%, what's that made up of?
And what does it look like from a value perspective?
So it needs to be broken down. So again, you need an explanation of the 20% because 20% of a total build is a very easy number to pull out of your head, but it needs to be justified. So really, really important. 100%.
So it's an interesting thing, but you can anyone can engage a quantity surveyor to actually come out, or a valuer to come out and undertake that 100%. Process. So you feel secure, you feel that everything is happening as should along the way, because we want the experience to be a good experience. We don't want anyone to be going into any strategy feeling so stressed by the time they got to the end of it that they'll never do it again. Right? It's about having a good experience along the way, which means sometimes you've got to bring other people in to be able to quantify information that you don't understand. So we do reach that end target on time, on cost, with good end results for everyone. So based on cost, let's look at a couple of leverage points, right? And I'm going to stay in the commercial realm at the moment, because this is probably the easiest to, when we start looking at what we've built and then bringing tenants in. We spoke about that sublease scenario and how that can actually pay your mortgage off. Right, where now you are using your asset for your benefit, for a profit gain, and certainly a cash flow gain as well. When it's done well. So from that sublease perspective, if we're talking construction, which we are, it would be really good for a builder to know that was the intention 100%. Right up front. 100%. Okay. So we're going to go back to when I say we're going to go back to the beginning, can't stress enough how much information is required and how many questions need to be asked right at the very beginning. And there's no stupid question, no stupid piece of information. I say the only stupid bit of information is the bit that was never given.
Correct.
Because at the end of the day, what you keep in your mind is great concept. I'm going to bring a tenant in here. They're going to lease it. They're going to pay part of my mortgage for me. I can expand my business. I've got more money in the bank to do it. I can employ more people. Great. But if I forgot to tell my builder that as we're building, how do we manage that now from a services perspective, from an exit perspective?
So utilities are your big one there. So, for example, the utilities are always at the front of the property. Yes, we can run utilities in. However, we've got to look at the actual supply, the volume that utility can provide. So power is a great example. So if you, for example, you've got a block of land, you go, I can fit 3 or 4 particular buildings on here, or I can have one building with 2 tenancies in there. We look at power hungry things, so if there's going to be more office fit outs, it's going to be lots of air conditioners, very power hungry. If it's a body corporate, we'll put a CT metering cabinetry in. Now that CT metering cabinet needs to know how many tenancies are going to be there from day dot. So if we allow for 4, we get a cabinet for 4, and you decide to add another 2, the cabinet's useless. The power supply, we've upgraded that. We've got a heavier cable in from the street to supply 4. We add 2, the cable's not big enough, so we're back to square one. Water, getting multiple meters fitted, things like that. NBN. NBN's one of those ones where you've got a forward plan. So making sure your pit and pipe design caters for adding additional things there, because once you've put your driveway in and you want to add some more in, you've got some real problems.
Digging some driveway up. So the thing is, we'll say nothing's impossible. Can you add a tenancy on as an end result. You can, but it's expensive. And to change some of those things now has a massive add-on. And remember, we went back to saying this is business. This is about the numbers. So if we haven't given it consideration and factored it in, all of a sudden that return on investment is going to be minimized.
100%.
Costs blow out. Not a great end result. We're questioning, what all this hype is about, being able to get good returns from commercial property or industrial property. It's not the property, it's just the process that we didn't undertake well.
And look, the other thing is too, even if you're not sure, if you think, look, down the track, I might add something, it could be as simple as just adding additional conduits. Things like where you think I might add solar to the roof. Run some conduits through the walls ready for solar. So the installation cost is going to be easier. The final finish is better, but it might be that there's surplus power out the front. So run some additional conduits so additional power can be run through later. So it could be as simple as that. We've done plenty of factories where we've built, say, a 600 square metre factory. It's had a design with a toilet down the back corner. We've actually ran sewer down the other side of the building to the other corner. We've just capped it off in the concrete. And we've had people be able to put a dividing wall down, and they've got all the services in the ground.
It's simple
just
at that point.
For a small investment at the start, bit of planning.
So it's a very, very small investment up front.
And if you don't use it, it's not the end of the world. So.
No, it's not. And the thing is, though, there's always the potential there to use it. So even from an on-sell perspective,
for on-sell,
that's
it's a great
information. Yeah, absolutely.
You'll get the money back when you sell. If you let them know that's already there.
It's already built in.
You get the money back.
So it pays to utilize your team up front, not be trying to rectify a lack of information at the back end.
Get advice of everyone. Like, ask for ideas. Because there's a wealth of experience out there. Just don't think you know it all. You've got it locked in what you want. Ask questions. What have you done here before? But look at what's been built in the area. Ask all your consultants what they've been involved with locally. And get some recommendations. Get some people you can go and speak to. And I do that all the time with my clients. I just call people that I've built for and say, can we come through, have a walk through? Because I want to build a similar building to yours.
Generally never get an issue. Again,
it's not a problem. People are happy to show off their buildings quite often. They're proud of what they've built.
That's a very, very good point. Have you got pushback from a builder that said, no, I'm not taking you through those. They're finished.
I question that again.
Yeah, so would I.
And, without sounding smug, for me with building, it's all about relationships. So a lot of my personal friends have been people that I've started off building for. I didn't have a relationship. I've built a project and become personal friends. So
which is great. It's exactly how it should be. It creates a great experience. You go again. Correct. You do it again. Everyone ends up with a good end result. So and I do. They're people that have done well are genuinely very proud of that and are very happy to say, hey, this is how it worked. These are the challenges that we came up with and hand on that information. So again, a lot of it is going to come down to
if they've had a good experience, there's no shortage of people that are happy to show people through.
Totally agree. So again, we're finished with our construction. We're living in some, we're actually operating our business out of some of this one. We've subleased the bottom of it. We've got some of our mortgage being paid off. We're very happy with who our tenants are. And now we're happy to make recommendation because we worked really closely with our entire team and we're happy to make recommendation, and we'll probably go through this process more than once because we see the value and the return that we're getting out of it. Where do you stop? At that point, you've finished a project. And the reason I ask this is because it's easy from our perspective to sit there and go, oh, well, this is what you lead into. And then you go again and you do. But that's not a starting position for everybody. No, that process, and again, there's a lot crammed into a very short period of time. That process, again, is not a hard process because you're not hands-on doing it. That's what your builder's doing. Right. They're doing the grunt work for you. So you're not that hands-on. If you look at it from an investment perspective, could you leverage off the value that you have created, not the cost that it cost you, the value you have created, and build another one and tenant it out, maybe on that other piece of land that's right
absolutely. So, I mean, this is more your department, but effectively, if you can get that equity, that uplift in value, makes perfect sense to go again.
By putting that tenant downstairs made a big difference to the value of our actual asset. And this is the difference between residential and the commercial industrial sector from an equity perspective. But it doesn't mean to say just because you've built one and you're an owner-occupier that you can't leverage off that asset to go 100%. And build yourself some great investment opportunities in turn, I say that always adds to your community, that area that you're in, right? You're now adding to the business sector and allowing other people to actually
and the other big one is
own.
Once you've gone through the experience, what you've learned, so the second time around is going to be a lot easier. And you'll see cost savings, you'll see different ways of doing things better and improving things. So, and look, out of that group of consultants, you might decide, well, that one particular consultant did an okay job, but maybe, you look at changing one of them out as you build that team over projects. You just fine tune it a bit more. So
look, of course you do, and like we said in the very onset, some of those consultants have a great skill set in one area and not necessarily in another. So some may not like or not be experienced enough with some complexities around projects that you would put someone else in there with a lot more experience or a higher skill set. Nothing worse than having a lack of experience on a project, but nothing worse than having a over-experienced person on a project either, and not just because of the cost, because of the frustration for them. Right. So you're just going to be really mindful, respectful of everyone's time, and making sure that everyone is enjoying the process along 100%. The way, because there'll be back-end challenges with councils and things that we all have to deal with. We don't want to create our own challenges in-house. That's definitely for sure. So really quickly, before we finish up, let's touch on the right team and the process that it can assist with from a construction perspective of we're pulling a project together. And let's just stick with our commercial one for the moment, seeing as that's just where we are. Right team platform. So we can bring our whole team together to work from that platform. We can, if we required a different town planner because our planner was busy, we could search the platform and find a new planner to work with. We can see projects that they've done. So if we're looking at that check-in to make sure that they've got the level of experience that we're looking for, or the quality of project, the viability of a project, we can see some of that stuff. All of our documents are in there. So when we are looking at what we are doing, we can share our documents. We make sure that everyone has got the same version. Then we're not turning up on site with multiple different versions of documents, which can be challenging on a good day. This is time effective.
Well, the other thing is you're getting your consultants to actually get the information off themselves from the right team. You're not having to, relay emails backwards and forwards and bits and pieces. So that to me is the big standout there. So
process wise, we're now streamlining it. That's saving time. It's saving stress factor on not just me or you from our role in that scenario, but definitely our whole team. If they are early risers and they decide that they're looking for something, it's right there for them. So it's quite easy. And you can workflow through it. So we can task allocate to someone in particular.
The big one with building the workflow is absolutely awesome for that.
So some big factors there that can have an impact on streamlining our process through construction or any other strategy for that matter. But definitely from a time-saving perspective, and we all know that time is money. But it also we can create more money off the back of that when we do things and create those processes as well. So I know we use it. It's made a big difference to how we give consideration to things in our processes. So I'm very excited with where it's at the moment. And do encourage everyone to jump on, have a look. It's free to join. There's no cost, irrelevant to how much you play around with it in the onset, and there are plenty of structured plans to give consideration to depending on the level of projects that you're doing and how much you want to utilize it. So I do really encourage you to jump on, have a look. Feedback is always great. Any questions, there is resources on the website for therightteam.com.au, and definitely the ability to reach out and ask questions to the entire team that's actually on there for your support too. Thanks, Trev. It's always fun. I absolutely love it. You're a wealth of knowledge. You always have been. And it's my absolute pleasure to have you around today. What I'd like to do next time is bring a couple of our other team members that we use for developments. So we may be able to see if I can sneak in our planner, maybe an engineer or a surveyor. We can bring a couple of the team together to then talk about how you operate as a team to be able to create some of those good end results, and then how you can go from that first one that you did into some more challenging, complex, but very rewarding developments.